everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it.
So on today's episode, I'm taking a look at Phantom Inc. This game, I've only heard whispers from the States, because apparently this game's been released over there for a little while now, and it's been doing quite well. Alley Cat have now brought it over to the UK, and we'll be releasing it on retail pretty soon, and it's like, okay. I'm intrigued, partially because it's got a concept that I don't think's been done very often before in party games, but also because it's a party game. You know, we've got big Euros, aplenty. They're out there, chaps, okay? We've got long campaign games. We've got rollin' rights, flippin' rights, effing rights, you know, you've got all sorts of rights. It's about time, you know, we could do with a really good party game these days. I mean, what was the last one we really had? The really last great one? Just one? Probably Just One's So Clover and I guess Detective Club. They're the only three I can think of that are like, oh yeah, these are greats that I can recommend. There's not been a huge amount of great party games lately, so hopefully this one will meet the mark. So Phantom Inc. is a pretty straightforward concept. Essentially you have two teams. It's team v team, sun versus moon team. And the idea is that you have mediums and a spirit on each team. So one player is a spirit and the rest are all mediums. So you can have whatever players needed for that. The spirits between them will decide on a word for the other teams to guess from the card, and both teams are trying to guess the same word. It's basically who gets it first. The mediums have got various cards that have questions on them, like for example, what noise does it make? How does it affect things around it? What science field studies it? What part of the body do you use it with? What happens if you put it underwater? What happens if you push it down a hill? Who makes it? What's an incorrect way to use it? All these questions that aren't necessarily super serious questions. What they do is that they give two of them to the spirit picks one of them to scrap in front of them face up and keeps the other one just to write an answer. And essentially what happens is the spirit writes down, and you won't be able to see it very easily on the camera, but essentially writes down the word that they're going to give as a clue by letter by letter. So, for example, we had one here where the, I think it was rat or something like that. It was something mouse related anyway. So I said, like, you know, what's your favourite type of it? And he was going to write field mouse. So he writes F, I, E, L, and it's up to the mediums to decide to tell the spirit to stop. So you're trying to guess what word the spirit's trying to tell you, but you're also not to let the spirit write so many letters that the other team who's watching this gets to decipher what the word is. They won't know what the question was, but if they can figure out the word, it can narrow their field down. It's got some similarities to a game called Decrypto, which had a similar feel of team versus team, where the answers given by one team could make life easier for the other team. It's definitely along those lines. And so it goes back and forth with teams basically giving two question cards, having one answered, having the clues written down, until you end up with basically, various partially filled words as the game goes on. If you want to take a guess, then you basically, write down a letter at a time, and the spirit confirms as each letter is written whether it's correct or not, and you've got some opportunities to ask a spirit to write another letter on one of their clues as the game drags on a little bit. And I don't mean drag on in a negative sense. I mean, if it starts getting to so many rounds, you start getting more clues to help you. But that's essentially the gist of the game. And I know it's a bit weird to explain in words, which is why I do keep some of these partially filled sheets, because I do have to kind of explain what I'm doing. And that's maybe one slight flaw of the game. If you explain this just in words, a lot of people, particularly new gamers, aren't quite going to gel with what it is you're on about. So you have to basically, you have to use some practical examples in order to get the message across, because it is very different from a lot of party games that they will find. It's a minor blemish, but just bear that in mind that it will trip some people up, at least for the first game, and then they'll start getting it. Now the game takes 4 to 8 players, and I don't recommend this game with less than 6, honestly. 4, I mean, if you have odd numbers of players, you've already got uneven teams, which is a pain anyway, but 4 players I don't think works very well, because you have basically one spirit and one medium per team. So there's no discussion, there's no real banter between mediums when there's only 4 of you. So you lose that essence, it becomes a very silent affair. Whereas if you have 6 players, then, which is the optimal number, you've got 2 mediums discussing with each other and having a bit of a laugh and coming up with ideas. That's great, and it works okay at 8 players as well. There's certainly enough variety in the game. I mean, you've got a big deck of words, all with 6 words on them, and there's no reason you couldn't make up your own. The only main clause is that it must be an object. So For example, you know, these two here. Chain, honey, tent, towel, peanut, pizza, crane, burrito, snail, skateboard, key, eagle. You know, they're all objects or things. And none of them are particularly weird, although saying that, oven, quill, cheese, one, duck, and metronome. Yeah, there's the odd word that's a little bit confusing. I don't even know what a metronome is. But, you know, there's a few that might trip you up, but at the end of the day, the spirits can decide between themselves which word they're going to go for. So if you do see something as confusing as that, you just simply don't pick it. It's not a big deal. There's a decent amount of these question cards though. You only have 7 in your hand at any particular time, and you draw 2 each time, so it's going to take you a while to go through this deck, and there's some here as I browse through it, which I've not even seen yet. There's like, how frequently do you use it? You know, what's this? Where does it go when it dies? Breaks or is no longer useful. Okay. What do you do with it when you only have half of it? What's inside it? I haven't even seen these questions yet. They've not appeared. So you got a good amount of, good amount of content here if you're going to play it with other players. Now, in terms of going first and second, I do think the Sun team has a little bit of an advantage over the Moon team, because the clues that you get where you can add another letter to another clue are differently spaced, because the Moon team gets them first compared to the Sun team to offset the first player advantage. But I think going first is generally a better thing anyway. So if you've got a team that you think's weaker, let them go first. They'll have a slight advantage. Not to say the Sun team will always win, but I seem to find that just having that extra piece of information first is usually a little bit better than just adding a letter to a clue somewhere. But it's not a big deal. Again, party game. Time length can drag a little bit. It says 10 to 15 minutes on the box. You'll be hard pressed to play any round of this in 10 to 15 minutes. It's just not going to happen. People will take time over the letters. People will take time coming up with answers to, you know, the questions that they're going to ask. And this is what drags the game out the most. Waiting for a team to hurry up and pick 2 questions, because some people do drag that out. But even then, I mean, 10 to 15 minutes if you guess it on, what, the 2nd or 3rd row. But if you go down all the way to like the 6th, 7th and 8th row, there's no way that's going to be done in 10-15 minutes. That's not impossible to do it in that kind of time. This is a game that is ideally going to set you back probably a good 30 minutes per game when you kind of know what you're doing. In terms of the gameplay, I really do enjoy this one. It's a good puzzle trying to figure out what this word is as you're trying to decipher all these partially filled words, but not just the ones that you've asked questions on. You're also looking at the other teams and thinking, I'm curious what that word is. I mean, if that word is what I think it is, then that means we need to switch tangents here and start thinking about this type of word. And there's a good amount of tension between the teams as you think, oh, they're going to make a guess, don't get it right, don't get it right. Oh, they didn't. Right, it's good. Right. Oh, but they've revealed that the word begins with SH, but they didn't get the 3rd letter right. Ooh, what could that be then? And it's that cool concept of the idea that you don't want to reveal too much to the other team. And some people do trip up and just forget to tell the spirit to stop writing. I get some looks sometimes where it's like, you're stopping him after 3 letters? Yeah, because if he writes the entire word out, then that gives everything to the other team. That's, you know, that's kind of the gist. It's gone over well with a lot of groups, but if you're not into word games, probably avoid this one. You know, people who aren't into stuff like Letter Jam or Code Names or those kind of word games are probably going to bounce off this one as well. You want to be into this style of game, team versus team, light-hearted, little bit of a puzzle solving, but, you know, with a little bit of humor, because these questions are weird at times, particularly when you're playing the spirit. I like playing both sides, medium or the spirit, because you're either figuring out the puzzle or you have fun trying to come up with clue words. But I particularly like playing the spirit because you're having to, you know, keep yourself to the 2 question cards, and sometimes you get a pair of cards that are just so bad. I mean, what tourist destination would you most likely find it at, coupled with what ancient Greek god is it related to? If I've got to describe a toothpick, where exactly do you expect me to go with this? It can lead to some great, you know, weird answers and weird bits of laughter, particularly with the 2 spirits. It's a bit like other party games where you've got stuff like Detective Club, for example, where even though you know what the clue word is, your picture cards might still be kind of useless for what it is you gotta describe. Well, this is the thing. You know what it is you're trying to get your team to guess, but if they give you really weird questions, it doesn't make your life any easier, but it does make it more amusing. So Phantom Inc. is a cool, light party game. Party word game. You know, 4 to 8 players, best with 6 or more. 6 or 8 players, you want this for like a large group at the end of a gaming club night. This is perfect and ideal. It's pretty compact, it's not too expensive, it doesn't have to worry about color blindness, because let's face it, there is no color in this game, it's all beige and black, so it's pretty much, you know, a standard affair game. I mean, we're not really buying this for component quality, although you do get a pretty good pad, and at least they do provide some pencils. But yeah, the game is just solid fun. It's gone over well with the majority of people I've played it with. It's going to stay in my collection. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It's definitely worth a seal of endorsement. I think this is one that I would probably stick in one of my more favourite party games that I would like to bring out. I would much rather play this than Codenames. That's a given. I mean, I'm kind of done with Codenames. It was fine, it's had its time, but now I'm just kind of bored with it. And that one can drag on to it endless lengths when you've got to wait for people to hurry up and make a decision on their words. This one at least goes at a bit of a quicker pace, and I just think this one is a more interesting style of team versus team word game. So yeah, it's not, you know, gonna blow the doors off. It's not gonna suddenly be the best game of 23 or anything, but I think if you're into these word party games, this is a solid one to hunt out. It's been popular in the States, and I hope it will be popular in the UK as well. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, please remember to thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when I put it up on the page. It gets it in the hot review section and it helps the YouTube algorithm. If you want to check out more content on the channel, you can check out the recent top 10 nature games list that I did for Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. And it's a pretty interesting list, and certainly you might be surprised as to which ones could turn up on there. So take care, and remember, regardless of if you're colourblind or not, it's still only a game. Bye for now.